I watched them bury the version of me that never believed I'd make it. The room was quiet, not because nobody cared, because everyone thought the story had already ended. They carried a casket, but inside wasn't my body, it was my fear, my excuses, the voice that kept saying, "You'll never be enough." I watched every lie get lowered into the ground. For the first time, I wasn't the one being buried. Sometimes you don't lose your life, you lose the version of yourself that was keeping you from living. I survived my own funeral, walked away from the grave that hopelessness dug for me. I left the old name in the dirt, rose carrying a heart that finally believed tomorrow was worth meeting. I remember living like I was already gone, smiling for pictures, breaking behind them, answering I'm fine. When silence knew the truth, I became an expert at hiding, until hiding started feeling like dying. That's when I realized breathing isn't the same thing as living. The hardest funeral I ever attended was the one where I buried the person who stopped believing in miracles. People noticed the confidence, they never saw the excavation. The night spent digging through regret, the morning spent rebuilding brick by brick. Healing isn't magic, it's choosing to return to the construction site every single day, even when nobody applauds the progress. Maybe your greatest comeback won't happen on a stage. Maybe it happens the morning you forgive yourself, the day you stop introducing yourself by your failures, the moment you realize your past is a chapter, not your name. Now, when I visit old memories, they don't own me. They're museums, not prisons. I can walk through, remember, learn, then leave without becoming who I used to be. This freedom, not forgetting, growing. If you're standing at the grave of your old life, don't cry for too long, thank it. It carried you as far as it could, now let it rest. The future needs a version of you the past could never create.
I survived
My own funeral,
not because
death missed me,
because hope
found me. The dirt didn't become my ending, it became the soil where courage finally took root. Today I'm not running from yesterday, I'm walking toward tomorrow, alive in every way that matters. If you feel like the world already wrote your ending, read this carefully. Some funerals aren't for people, they're for fear, they're for shame, they're for the voices that convinced you you never change. So bury what needs to stay buried, but don't bury yourself with it. Walk away, leave the grave empty, and let the world wonder how someone they counted out learned to live again. The hardest part wasn't surviving the funeral. It was learning how to live after everyone buried the wrong version of me. The cemetery stayed behind me, but somehow its echoes followed home. People still called me by the name I had already buried. They remembered the quitter, the doubter, the one who apologized for taking up space, but they never met the person who climbed out of the grave with hope in both hands. Sometimes the world needs time to catch up to your healing. Don't rush it. The past still knocked. I simply stopped opening the door. I survived my own funeral. Now I'm learning how to live, not for applause, not for approval, but because tomorrow deserves a version of me. Yesterday could never become the grave. Didn't release me to look backward, it released me to keep walking. Healing a strange habits, it arrives quietly, not with fireworks, with ordinary mornings, making breakfast, answering calls, laughing without forcing it, realizing you made it an entire day without introducing yourself to your pain. That's a miracle nobody posts, but it's one worth celebrating. The miracle wasn't surviving, it was believing life could still surprise me. I found old journals, read words written by someone who thought there wasn't another chapter. I wanted to hug that version of myself, tell him, you don't know it yet. But one day the tears you're writing with will become someone else's reason to keep breathing. Sometimes your greatest message is hidden inside your oldest wounds. Don't be ashamed of your scars. Math need lines to guide people home. Maybe someone will escape their darkness because you refused to hide yours. Today, I don't chase perfection, I chase peace, because perfection moves the finish line. Peace teaches you to enjoy the road. I still stumble, still question, still fight old thoughts. The difference is I no longer mistake a difficult day for a defeated life. That's wisdom, not luck. If you're standing beside the grave of your old identity, leave the guilt, leave the shame, leave the fear that convinced you nothing could ever change. Take only the lessons, they weigh less, but carry farther. I survived my own funeral, not because the darkness disappeared, because the light finally became louder. Every step away from the grave became another promise kept to myself. Every sunrise reminded me the story didn't end where I thought it would. It began there. One day, someone will ask who you used to be. Smile. Not because you forgot, because you forgave. You don't owe your past another lifetime. You honored it by learning from it. Now honor your future by living it. The grave has already released you. Don't keep visiting a place you've already walked away from. Live. That's the greatest tribute you can give to the person who almost never made it here. I thought surviving was the miracle. Then I realized the real miracle was becoming someone my past couldn't recognize. Sometimes I visit the cemetery inside my memory, not to stay, just to remember how dark the night became before dawn. Learn my name, I stand over invisible graves. One reads fear, another shame, another who I pretended to be. Every stone reminds me some things had to die so I could finally live honestly. The ground didn't keep me, it prepared me.
I survived my own funeral.
Now every heartbeat feels borrowed.
For a purpose, every sunrise
Feels like an invitation
to become the answer I once
prayed for. The grave lost its voice, hope found mine. Yeah. The strange thing about rebirth, nobody teaches you how to carry it. You still wake up with old memories, old temptations, old insecurities, but now they knock on a house you no longer live in. Sometimes healing means remembering the address has changed. Don't revisit the coffin just because the silence feels familiar. Comfort can't exist inside cages too. Freedom feels unfamiliar at first.
stay free.
A kid stopped me one afternoon, said I heard your story. It made me think maybe mine isn't over. That sentence weighed more than every number, every view, every applause. Because I realized the chapters I wanted to erase were becoming someone else's reason to keep writing. Maybe pain was never the destination. Maybe it was the language hope needed to speak. Your greatest achievement isn't surviving. What if it's making sure someone else doesn't give up because they watched you refuse to? That kind of victory outlives you. Now, when storms return, I don't ask, why again? I ask, who needs to see me walk through this one? Strength isn't measured by the storms you avoid. It's measured by the people who discover their courage because you kept moving. That is a life living twice.
If you're listening
from a place that feels like the end.
Listen closely.
The end.
The end.
Sometimes where's the close of a beginning? Don't let the darkness name your future. It has never seen the
Sunrise
waiting for you.
I survived my own funeral.
Not to relive the past, but to become
Living evidence that
broken stories can breathe again. Every scar became a sentence. Every tear became a testimony. Every broken dream made room for a greater one. The grave didn't lose a victim. The world gave your witness. Oh, if no one has told you this, your life is more than your worst chapter. Your mistakes are events, not identities. Your failures are lessons, not names. Walk away from every grave that keeps calling you back. You don't know yesterday, another lifetime. The version of you that almost didn't survive would be amazed to see who you're becoming. Keep going. The world still needs the person who walked out of the cemetery. The grave couldn't keep me, but life still tried to pull me back. Every day, I chose resurrection again. People think second chances feel effortless. They don't. Every morning, I wake up with two voices. One whispers, go back to who you were. The other says, keep becoming who you promised you'd be. The battle never disappeared. The battlefield just moved inside my mind. But this time, I wasn't fighting to survive. I was fighting to protect the life I almost lost. The cemetery taught me one lesson: never let the past borrow your future. I survived my own funeral. Now every sunrise feels earned. Every breath feels sacred. Every step reminds me that hope isn't found once it's chosen. Again and again, I walk past the places that almost destroyed me. The old apartment, the empty parking lot, the street where I almost turned around on my dream. Nothing changed except me. Funny how healing can transform the same road into a different destination. The scenery stayed familiar, the traveler did not. Sometimes growth looks like walking through the same storm without becoming the same person. Someone asked, do you ever miss the old you? I smile, there are pieces I still honor. The innocence, the hunger, the hope that somehow survived even when everything else fell apart. But I don't miss the fear that made decisions for me. I don't miss the silence that convinced me nobody cared. I buried those voices for a reason, and I refuse to become their echo. Maybe healing isn't reaching a finish line. Maybe it's It's waking up every day and choosing not to return to the prison whose key you already threw away. Freedom isn't a place, it's a decision. Repeat it until it becomes your identity. Now, when people tell me you're strong, I think about the nights nobody saw, the tears that never became social media posts, the prayers that sounded like broken sentences. Strength was never the absence of breaking, it was learning how to rebuild without hating the pieces, because every fragment still belonged to me. If you're standing where I once stood, looking at the wreckage, don't ask, can this life be saved? Ask, what can be built from what's left? Because foundations don't need perfection, they need honesty, and honest beginnings outlast perfect illusions. I survived my own funeral, not because I escaped death, but because I stopped living like I was already gone. Every heartbeat became a promise, every scar became a reminder, every sunrise became proof that endings can become introductions. The grave didn't give me a second life, it taught me how to value the first one. If this song finds you standing beside something you thought you'd never recover from, listen. You are not standing at the end, you're standing at the doorway of a life your pain could never imagine. Don't worship the person you used to be. Honor them, thank them, then keep walking, because the greatest way to respect the version that survived is to become someone they would be proud to meet.